During the 2 years you spent in Paris, you had a chance to meet Boris Vian, is that right? Homeboy Q, I'd like you to tell me how many records have you sold with your name on it as arranger, composer, or producer? Oh, wow. I don't know, about 100 million something. I don't know. Hey, dude. In Back on the Block, you tell 40 years of black music in 57 minutes. Is that really your autobiographical footprint? Yeah, I would say that Back on the Block would be like an autobiographical footprint. It's the last 40 years of my life, musically. You know, you could have called this album By Courtesy Of. Did you have any problems legally getting all these people? I called and said, I'd like you to sing or play on this number. They said, what time? It was not a problem. A couple of people that I wanted to be on the album could not be. Lionel Richie was supposed to sing on the album, and he had to have an operation on his throat, and Stevie Wonder was out of town. So, now do you really think hip-hoppers are creative as beboppers and rockers? Yes. I think rappers is one of the most creative things that have happened since rock and roll and jazz. Because number one, they have an energy that nothing else has today. They're dealing with a lot of the rhythms of the 70s, and there's a lot of high-tech things going on, like sampling. But it's interesting because I met LL Cool J about 4 years in New York, and he asked me a question that made me think. He said, what do the singers and the musicians think about us rappers? And that's the first time I ever considered that they don't consider themselves musicians or singers. They're like another entity. And in a way they are, because they deal with just rhythm. I'm kind of curious, why didn't Michael Jackson sing on the album? He said the president of his company didn't want him to sing on my record. Weren't the two of you kind of disappointed, creatively and sales-wise, on the Bad LP? Disappointed? With 22 million albums? No, not at all. I mean, if you look at it in relationship to Thriller, which is 40 million, but that's insanity to think you're going to do that again. 22 million albums is a lot of records. I wasn't disappointed. I've been in the business too long to be disappointed with 22 million. 2 million is nice. Do you know anything about the story about Michael's recent conversion to Islam? Unbelievable. I never heard about that. That's news to me. You're kidding, huh? You say that Tevin Campbell reminds you of Stephen and Michael when they were about the same age, 12, right? Yes. I met Stevie at the Apollo Theater when he was 12 years old. And I met Michael Jackson, I think at Sammy Davis's house when he was 12 years old. And it's a kind of a symbol that Tevin happened to be 12 too. So by this time, I think I know one when I see one. And I think Tevin has as much or more than Michael had when he was 12 years old. And he's really sweet. Do you think you'll ever produce Prince? I don't know, he asked me to. I asked Prince to be on the album too, to play guitar. And he said he didn't want to do that because he wanted me to produce a whole album with him. But it depends on time. Could you tell me who this lady, Nadia Boulanger, was that you came to work with in France, recommended by Lalo Schifrin? Nadia Boulanger was, I would say, probably the most renowned composition teacher that the world has ever seen, really. She taught Aaron Copland, she taught Philip Glass, Leonard Bernstein, many people. She was a friend of Ravel and a friend of Stravinsky. In fact, I met Igor Stravinsky at her home on 36 Rue Balou. And it took me a long time to really absorb all of the wisdom that she gave me, because when I came to her, I was a bebopper. And I was hard to discipline as a classical musician, because I didn't want to really be a classical musician. I wanted to understand composition, but not be a classical musician. And as recent as 5 and 6 years ago, a lot of things that she told me now are starting to really become clear and make sense. Like, you don't have freedom in music until you have a total restriction. You restrict yourself and establish the periphery, and then you have freedom in music. And it's true, because if you can play anything you want, you play nothing. Was Barclay Records the right place for you to take your first steps as a professional arranger? It was a perfect place for me, because in those days, 1957, I used to work a lot as an arranger for jazz bands and jazz small horn sections, but at that time they didn't let black arrangers write for strings. And so I bounced off to France and I had strings all out in the hallway. We had 12 cellos and 62 string sections, or 62-piece string sections sometimes, and I really got a good opportunity to write for a lot of different types of music in Paris. During the 2 years you spent in Paris, you had a chance to meet Boris Vian, is that right? Yes, he was an unbelievable, creative person. I mean, he had no boundaries. That's what I liked about him. He was very young when he died. But I remember he wrote a lyric to a song that Cannonball Adderley composed called Sermonette. And I was surprised by the title that he gave it, Si je croyais en Dieu. And it was incredible because it said at the end, there's so much jealousy and hatred and pain in the world that I long for the day when Mother Death takes me away in her arms. And it seemed like it was a kind of a prophetic statement in his lyric. He was a genius. Did the brain operation that you had in 1974, did that change your life anyway afterwards? Yes. It made me understand that there's only 25,000 days to really do it all, approximately. And you don't have forever, and you should tell people what you feel, what you really feel at the time, and not try to be cool and hold back emotions, and that you should have an attitude about life that I'm sorry I did rather than I wish I had. Hey dude, what is your problem? Why aren't you wearing your red ribbon? The rosette.
Et pour être sûr de ne rien rater de Inarditube, abonnez-vous et mettez un pouce bleu.